Chairman. I appreciate this hearing happening, but my farmers and producers are not talking to me about climate change issues. They're talking to me about the ever-soaring input costs, how is this administration, how are we in Congress addressing those high costs and inflationary pressures? What is the Biden administration doing to tone down the rampant spending? And reports just this week show average gas prices in the U.S. have risen 22%, and that's just in 2 weeks. And yet the Biden administration refuses to uphold the renewable fuel standard, an immediate solution to lower emissions and reduce costs at the pump. Inflation is now at over 8%. Ag input costs are rising, as I mentioned, and showing no signs of slowing. And it's not just that. This administration has abandoned our farmers in so many ways, be it through pushing a new regulatory scheme with their WOTUS rewrite, abandoning President Trump's navigable waters protection rule, creating new obstacles for pesticide use, and failing to follow through on existing trade deals. The ag economy is hurting across the board. They are concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to afford to plant a crop this year. And look, we can always talk about addressing climate change issues. I mean, America deserves credit, and our farmers deserve a lot more credit for what they've done to reduce greenhouse emissions. Can any of the witnesses please tell me and speak to the way inflation, these input costs, and maybe even these reckless policies make it impossible to predict what a market looks like months from now, let alone a year from now when we start talking about this farm bill? Our farmers want to know if they're going to be able to survive before we get to the next farm bill. Mr. Connery, would you like to respond?
Congressman Davis, thanks for that opportunity. I do not disagree with you that the coffee shop talk today is not climate change. It's world events, it's fertilizer prices, it's a number of things that are literally, sort of in your face, and I concur with that. I will say, though, that we find great interest from our producers when we start talking about climate in the context of incentive-based, in the context of additional resources and revenues in your pocket. And, that is in desperate need out there in rural America, given the challenges that we face. Farmers need a better shake. And we're doing this right now to try and give them that. And we wouldn't be sitting here addressing these concerns if it didn't have that strong potential associated with it. On the biofuels front, I'm well aware of what you're saying. The number of facilities out there that are offering, the higher octane blends is dismal out there in rural America, and we're missing a great opportunity there. We need that infrastructure, and some of those investments we are talking about in this climate debate, to raise that numbers, because right now we cannot have much of a market impact when I believe the figure is like 3,000 retail outlets out of tens of thousands of outlets actually offer these higher blends, and that's just totally inadequate. We've got to change it.
It is. Retail outlets are not going to invest in offering new choices if they don't know if the administration is going to follow the existing law under the renewable fuel standard. There's no certainty. How in the world can you expect somebody in the private sector to make a business decision when they don't know if decisions here in Washington are going to actually follow the law? And that's what's frustrating to us. I mean, we've heard promises from administrations in the past and the current administration about what they're going to do to help our ethanol producers, what they're going to do to help our farms. They're not doing it, and that's what's frustrating. We're in kind of a spin cycle of whether or not to be able to get these products out into the marketplace. Mr. Outlaw, did you want to make a comment on the input costs or any of the other issues that our farmers are facing?
Well, obviously, we've done a couple of studies, one for Congresswoman Letlow on the impact of fertilizer prices on all of our farms, and it's been huge. And we did some analysis just looking at nitrogen as well, and it was big. The honest answer is that I hope that the prices that the futures market is reflecting come true, because if not, we're going to have a big disaster, because the costs have gone up in some cases 20 to 40% across the board for different types of commodities, and that will put a lot of people in very dire straits.
It's going to put them in dire straits. Imagine You know, if we had to compete against our global competitor where we see war ravaging in Europe, and imagine if there weren't any issues with the Brazilian soybean crop. But that cannot be permanent, and we cannot allow these costs to be permanent. I yield back, Mr. Chair.